All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. In about a month's time, about 1 billion Indian people will be heading to the polling stations to exercise their right to cast a vote, to elect their representatives. This will be the world's biggest electoral exercise, one that rightly justifies the tag of being termed as the biggest festival of democracy on earth. On Saturday, the Indian Election Commission announced the 6-week-long general elections in India that will begin from the 19th of April. The polling will stretch over 7 phases, with the voting starting at different times in different states. The counting of the votes will take place on the 4th of June, and the results will be announced immediately afterwards.
Schedule of the Lok Sabha poll, we'll do it in 7 phases, as was done last time. 7 phases. और पूरी country में 4 जून को counting होगी.
Now, each phase of the election will last about a day. They'll be spread over several seats across multiple states, densely populated cities, and also far-flung villages. Now, the staggered polling process will allow the Election Commission to deploy tens of thousands of officials to allow for transporting the voting machines to various locations, and also for the security personnel to prevent any untoward incidents. Now, the Indian Prime Minister is, of course, gunning for a historic 3rd term. And what is interesting is that this time round, the Indian Prime Minister has set a target of 370 seats for the Bharatiya Janata Party alone, and about 400 plus seats for the National Democratic Alliance as it heads into the elections. In the 543-member lower house of the parliament, up from 303 seats that the BJP had won back in 2019, where the NDA had managed to win 353 seats. The multiple surveys, of course, are suggesting a very comfortable majority for the Bharatiya Janata Party, but you must always look at these opinion polls and surveys with more than a pinch of salt, because they often get things wrong. Now, after the announcement of the dates, the Indian Prime Minister said that his party will campaign on its track record of good governance and public service. Now, the Indian Prime Minister has been showcasing India's economic growth, with India having become the fastest growing major economy in the world, and also as an investment hub, and also as a major infrastructure and welfare programs that he has carried out and delivered for the people in India. Now, the BJP is challenged by an alliance of 24 opposition parties that is led by the main opposition, the Congress party. The opposition bloc calls itself the India Alliance. The ruling party faces some pretty stiff opposition in states like West Bengal and also in the South Indian states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Now, to give us more perspective in terms of what these elections, of course, mean for democracy in India and how they will, of course, play out, we're being joined by Dr. Makarand Paranjape, who's an author and a commentator. He's joining us live from Bengaluru. Now, Mr. Paranjape, this is the big moment as we head into the election season in India. An estimated 968 million people are, of course, eligible to vote in these elections that will be held in 7 phases. First, let's talk about the logistical challenge this actually is, because there is no other country on earth where an election of this scale is held.
Absolutely. Almost 1 billion people, as you said, 7 phases over a month and a half. And, in big states like Uttar Pradesh, even Maharashtra, they're going to be polling several times. You see, almost in every phase, there's going to be some seats up for grabs, which means that personnel as well as, the electoral machines have to be moved back and forth. So it is really a logistical challenge of gargantuan dimensions, as you said, as well as a security challenge. The one hopes that the elections will be peaceful and will not be marred by protests or violence or any other kind of major disruption.
And also one very interesting aspect that one needs to talk about, Mr. Paranjape, is one aspect was the logistics of even conducting an election of this scale. But going into these elections, what we are witnessing is that the Bharatiya Janata Party under Narendra Modi, that has been in power for 10 long years now, faces almost no kind of anti-incumbency whatsoever. And this time round, Prime Minister Modi has set for his party a target of 370 seats, which is a two-thirds majority. Why do you think the Indian Prime Minister, who in this last 10 years of Prime Ministership has had a complete majority, now wants a two-thirds majority?
Well, Mr. Saleh, you know, the idea of the two-thirds majority is very old in the electoral process. It's called a supermajority. I believe it goes back to 100 BC, before the current era, when Pope Alexander, I think, used that two-thirds majority in one of his councils. So basically, two-thirds majority is something that democracies will use to make major changes. The Americans have done it, others have done it too. I think in India, there is a clause in the constitution which says that you need two-thirds majority if you want to make changes, for example, in the constitution itself. I think it's
so
Article
if I can probe you further, is
360.
that the intention why the BJP now wants a two-thirds majority, changes in the constitution?
It could be. It could well be. We don't know. Do you know the Indian constitution has been amended more than 100 times, and it's been done most by Congress governments, most by Mrs. Indira Gandhi when she was prime minister. So constitutional amendments do not have to be regarded with a sense of alarm. But at the same time, obviously, the prime minister wants this huge mandate to push through his development agenda as well.
Right.
You know, because that's his priority. In fact, they're playing the development card more than the Hindutva card, as I see it. You spoke about anti-incumbency. I wouldn't look at it quite like that. I would look at it in terms of the opposition being in a disarray, not having a narrative, not having any alternatives. And therefore,
Right.
I think that the Prime Minister and his party are comfortably ahead. You're right.
You know, it's interesting that you bring up the issue of opposition now. In a strong democracy, what is important is that we have a strong government, but equally important, we also need a strong opposition, something that would keep the government on its toes. The principle of checks and balances is so crucial. If you only have a strong government and no opposition whatsoever, what do you think that actually means for democracy in our country?
I personally agree that we need a strong opposition, and without it, I wouldn't quite go to the extent of saying democracy is in danger, but certainly a strong opposition, especially in the parliament, should hold the government, the treasury benches accountable. But even in the past, we haven't had that in India. We haven't yet evolved to a two-party system. In fact, not even to a two-alliance system, because the India alliance, as you put it, has not really taken off. So I think that the whole shift in the democratic process all across the world is for stronger governments with charismatic leaders who are destined, in the view of the people, to take their country forward. And India is in a very special zone right now, as you said, the fastest growing economy. And that's why I think the people of India also feel that rather than being fragmented and divided, if we have a strong leader and a strong government, India will progress faster.
All right, that of course is the hope, that India of course continues to keep making progress in the manner that it has done for quite several years now. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Makarand Paranjape, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.